was like, where's the epidural? Where's the epidural? Are you serious? I didn't know what to think. Hi everyone, today I'm going to share with you one of the most memorable days of my life. My labor and delivery story. From first contraction to holding my baby, let me just tell you, things did not go as planned, but God always has a better plan. So let's dive in. I remember I was having contraction maybe 2 weeks before my due date, and I was basically having these random contractions. They weren't so painful or intense, so I basically worked till the last Friday of the week of my due date. On my first maternity leave, I went to the farmer's market in the morning, I went home, we took a nap, and I took a shower. I took a shower and then I took a nap. I woke up at around like 6 p.m. and I was feeling, some more intense contraction. And I remember walking into the kitchen, I was telling my husband, he was cooking dinner at that time. I was telling him that, I feel more intense contractions. I think it's gonna be these couple of days. And the contractions were maybe like 10 minutes apart. And I was like, okay, it's gonna be really these couple of days. So I called the labor and delivery, spoke to a nurse, and I told her, it's about 8-10 minutes apart. And she was like, oh, it's your first baby, it's gonna take a long time. Just, make sure you rest, drink water. Don't worry, you have plenty of time to even take a shower before going to the hospital. So I was like, okay, everything's fine. And we continued to, prepare dinner. We sat down, I was just about to eat, and all of a sudden I felt this click in my stomach, and my pain level was maybe like around 3 with the contraction at that time. After that click in my stomach, the pain level rose to like a 6. And I remember I was like, it's so painful. And I was holding on to, I couldn't sit, I couldn't stand. I was kind of at the edge of my sofa, and I was kind of holding the edge of my sofa, and I was kind of on the floor, and I was telling my husband, I need to poop, I really need to poop, but I cannot make it to the bathroom. So after he helped me to the bathroom, I was like, okay, call the labor and delivery. My husband was talking to the nurse, and the nurse was like, I need to speak to the patient. And I was like, so in pain, I could not talk. I tried to talk, but I couldn't. So I just told her, I'm sorry, you have to talk to my husband. So I gave the phone to my husband, and the nurse was like, does she need an epidural? And we're like, yeah, we need an epidural right away. After we got in the car, we rushed to the hospital. Once we arrived, maybe it was around like 9:30, I immediately asked for the epidural. That's the first thing that I asked for. I knew I was gonna get an epidural because I just know that I have very low pain tolerance. If you listen to my last video, you would know, how God really took away that fear in me for childbirth, and how I have very low pain tolerance. I hate needles, I hate any kind of physical pain. We got admitted, and my husband said they were and this part I actually didn't know because I was in so much pain. I don't think I paid too much attention to my surrounding and what people were saying and whatnot. When we got to the hospital, they were kind of nonchalant, knowing that it's my first baby. They got me onto the bed, and they were preparing and just ordering the epidural until I felt something coming out. And I remember I was saying, there's something coming out, there's something coming out. And the nurse checked me, and she was like, oh, your water broke. And then I had a show right after, blood. And then the nurse called the doctor and the midwife. They came, checked me. I was 7 centimeters dilated. And that was only, I think, 10-15 minutes after I got admitted. So I was like, where's the epidural? Where's the epidural? I need an epidural right now. They went ahead and checked on the epidural and came back, told me that the epidural is not ready because 2 anesthesiologists that were on staff, they were called to an emergency C-section, and they won't be out anytime soon. They checked me again. I was more progressed. I forgot how many centimeters I was, but I was told that I had to deliver without an epidural. I just have to deliver naturally. And I was like, oh my gosh, no epidural? Are you serious? Are you serious? Never in a million years would I have expected to not have an epidural. I knew in the beginning that was the first thing on my birth plan. I just know I wouldn't be able to handle the pain. At that point, I was just like, really? Are you serious? And I didn't know what to think. I just focused on breathing, relaxing my body. Very soon, I felt the urge to push. And I told them I felt the urge to push, and my body was already pushing the baby out. And I remember just praying to God, help me, Lord, please, help me go through this. This next part, I actually didn't know as well because they had given me some pain meds to basically hold me down for the epidural. They thought I could wait until the epidural. but because the baby was coming out so fast, I don't know if I remember it correctly, but because the baby was coming out so fast and I didn't have an epidural, there's a chance that the baby won't be breathing right after she's out. So there was a team of 3 people with a bunch of equipments and tools that had come into the room, and my husband was asking like, what are they here for? And they told him the reason why they're here. So there were a bunch of people in the room, the team of 3, the midwife, the doctor, and then 2 other nurses. And praise God, after Phoebe came out, she was crying, so the team of 3 just immediately left. He said that it was kind of funny because the moment that he cried, they just left the room. Okay, I'm getting ahead. Basically, at this point, I was having very intense and strong and painful contractions, and I was screaming my lungs out. I think the whole floor could hear me. I was screaming. They were telling me that I had to push with each contraction. It was seriously the most painful thing I have ever felt. And of course, my husband was beside me, soothing me and comforting me and just hugging me and helping me with the pain. And I remember at the end, I almost didn't feel the pain because I was so focused on pushing, and I was basically the one to make the call. I had to tell them, or they asked me to tell them when I had a contraction, I guess so that they could lift my leg up and just to monitor the whole thing. So I had to focus on, okay, now I have a contraction, and I have to tell them, okay, now I'm ready to push. It was like a task I was so focused on doing, making sure that I was pushing with the contraction. At maybe around 11 p.m., so exactly 3 hours from my first, painful contraction at home to the time my baby was out. And I still remember clearly when the nurse called out the time. I was like, oh my gosh, it's finished. It's finished. I felt so relieved and just so grateful that it's finished. Then I had to push the placenta out, which was somewhat more scary for some reason. And thank God I only had to push maybe like 3 times. The placenta came out. And then the doctor had to stitch me up. I had a 3rd B degree tear, which is considered quite a severe tear. And the doctor probably spent maybe 20-30 minutes stitching me up. And then the rest of it was kind of like a blur to me. I just remember I had to go to another room. The midwife later on came by and basically apologized to me and said, I'm so sorry, that I hope it wasn't traumatic to you because you didn't get the epidural. And I remember thinking, why would it be traumatic? Why was it traumatic? And I'm so thankful that I had that feeling because that means I wasn't traumatized from that experience. But still, my mind could not wrap around the fact that I did not have an epidural. I had expected other scenarios, like the epidural didn't work on me, after I got it, or I got it and then the dosage was not high enough and I had to constantly, continuously have more doses of the epidural. I don't know how it works, but I had expected all kinds of situations, but never had I thought to not have an epidural at all. I didn't make it in time to have an epidural because the baby was coming out so fast. I'm so thankful to say that looking back, I think it was such a positive experience. Of course, even though it was very, very painful, but the baby came out so fast, the delivery was so smooth, it was a natural delivery that I didn't plan, and baby was healthy. And I quite enjoyed my stay at the hospital. The food was really good. I could eat all I want. I could drink all I want. And I remember I was just praising God for such a fast and smooth delivery. To be honest, I think in the beginning, I was so focused on the fact that I didn't have an epidural and that what I had planned didn't work out. But actually, God had better plan for me, that I had an unplanned, unexpected natural delivery. It really reminds me of Proverbs chapter 16, verse 9. The heart of man plans his way, but the Lord establishes his step. Or in the NLT version would be, we can make our own plans, but the Lord determines our step. If you listened to my last video, I shared about how I never wanted to be pregnant again because I had such a rough pregnancy, to God taking that fear away from me. A few days after my delivery, I remember thinking, I don't want to go through this again because it was so painful. To now, 3 months postpartum, I'm so happy to say that I am willing to go through this again if God entrusts us with a second child. This is wild because it's really true of what they say. You will forget about the pain when you see your baby, and the joy of having your own child just really surpasses all the sufferings, all the pain. I think caring for my daughter was really the sweetest thing I've ever felt. A kind of joy and love that is hard to explain. Praise God again for such a smooth and fast delivery, and the baby is healthy. I hope my story inspires you and encourages you in some way. Remember, even things don't go as planned, God is always in control. If you haven't watched my last video about how God took away my fear of childbirth, you can watch it here. Thank you so much again for sharing this journey with me and to listening to my story. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.